Have you ever taken one of those personality quizzes on social media? The kind that promises to tell you which city you should live in, what kind of animal you are, or which character from a trending show matches your vibe? It's a harmless bit of fun, a few minutes of distraction in your feed. You click a few buttons, answer some lighthearted questions, and share the results with your friends. But what if I told you that a simple quiz, one that looked just like that, wasn't just a game? What if it were a key, designed to unlock the most private parts of your mind? And that key was then handed over to a political consulting firm that used it to build a psychological profile on you and then on your friends and their friends, ultimately harvesting the data of up to 87 million people, most of whom never even took the quiz. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is the story of Cambridge Analytica. It's the story of how your likes, your clicks, and your casual online interactions were collected, analyzed, and weaponized to influence democratic elections around the world. So, what is the true cost of sharing your life online? The answer is far more shocking than you think. If you're ready to understand the hidden forces shaping your digital world, you're in the right place. And make sure you're subscribed to GenShift because you won't want to miss what's coming. 1. The digital heist: how a simple quiz became a global scandal. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to 2013. The story begins not in a shadowy government building, but in the halls of Cambridge University with a data scientist named Alexander Kogan. Through his company, Global Science Research, Kogan developed a Facebook app called This Is Your Digital Life. As per sources like The Guardian and The New York Times, this app was presented as a personality quiz for academic research. Around 270,000 Facebook users were paid a small fee, typically a few dollars, to download the app and take the quiz. When they clicked OK, they consented to share their data. But here's where the architecture of the digital heist becomes clear. At the time, Facebook's platform policy, through something called the Open Graph API, allowed developers to do more than just access the data of the person taking the quiz. It allowed them to access the data of that person's entire friend network. This created an exponential cascade. Those 270,000 individual users became gateways to the personal information of tens of millions of their friends who had given no consent. They had no idea their data was being siphoned away. Facebook later confirmed that the data of up to 87 million people was improperly harvested, with over 70 million of them in the United States alone. The information collected included public profiles, page likes, birthdays, and even for some, the contents of their private messages. It's critical to understand that this wasn't a hack in the way we usually think of it. No systems were infiltrated with brute force, no passwords were stolen. Instead, it was a quiet, insidious exploitation of Facebook's systems, which were, at the time, working exactly as they were designed. The terms of service for Kogan's app, buried in fine print, even stated that by agreeing, users would permit GSR to edit, copy, disseminate, publish, transfer, append or merge with other databases, sell, and license their data for any purpose. And Kogan did sell it. He passed this massive trove of raw data to a British political consulting firm, Cambridge Analytica. This firm, which worked on political campaigns for Ted Cruz and later Donald Trump, wasn't just interested in what you liked. They wanted to know who you were. They tried to use this data to build a psychological model of every voter in America. The digital heist was complete. The raw material had been acquired. Now, it was time to turn it into a weapon. This scandal, which erupted into public view in March 2018, thanks to whistleblower Christopher Wiley and reporting from The Guardian and The New York Times, caused Facebook's market value to plummet by over $100 billion in days and forced CEO Mark Zuckerberg to testify before the US Congress. The world was waking up to a terrifying new reality. But to truly grasp the danger, we need to look past the corporate apologies and government fines. We need to deconstruct the psychological engine at the heart of it all. 2. Psychographics, the new weapon of mass manipulation. So, what exactly did Cambridge Analytica do with 87 million Facebook profiles? They didn't just use demographics, the basic data points of who you are, like your age, gender, and location. They used that data to build something far more powerful: psychographic profiles. Psychographics explain why you do what you do. They map your personality, your values, your fears, your opinions, and your deepest motivations. It's the difference between knowing someone is a 25-year-old male living in Ohio and knowing he's a highly neurotic introvert who is deeply concerned about personal security. Which person do you think is easier to persuade? The psychological framework Cambridge Analytica used is a well-established, scientifically validated model in psychology known as the Big Five or OCEAN. It posits that every human personality can be measured along 5 core spectrums: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Openness is about your curiosity and appetite for new experiences. High scorers are imaginative and adventurous. Low scorers prefer routine and tradition. Conscientiousness measures your self-discipline and reliability. High scorers are organized and dutiful. Low scorers are more spontaneous and impulsive. Extroversion is about where you get your energy. High scorers are outgoing and energized by social interaction. Low scorers, or introverts, are more reserved and recharge in solitude. Agreeableness reflects your tendency toward cooperation and compassion. High scorers are trusting and helpful. Low scorers are more competitive and skeptical. And finally, neuroticism measures emotional stability. High scorers are prone to anxiety, stress, and worry. Low scorers are calmer and resilient. Here is the terrifying genius of their plan. Researchers at Cambridge University and elsewhere had already demonstrated that a person's digital footprint, specifically their Facebook likes, could predict their OCEAN score with startling accuracy. Studies showed that liking Pulp Fiction or The Daily Show correlated with higher openness, while liking The Apprentice suggested higher conscientiousness. Liking Lady Gaga was a predictor for extroversion, while liking emo bands like My Chemical Romance or saying "sometimes I hate myself" was linked to higher neuroticism. Cambridge Analytica claimed to have up to 5,000 data points on every single voter. Using this, they could assign an OCEAN score to millions of Americans. And with that score, they could begin what they called behavioral micro-targeting. This was the weapon in action. It meant they could craft thousands of different versions of a political ad, each one tailored to trigger a specific psychological profile. As their own leaked presentation documents revealed, the strategy was to identify people who could be enticed to vote for their client, or just as importantly, discouraged from voting for the opponent. For example, to target voters who scored high on both neuroticism and conscientiousness, they designed ads about gun rights that weren't about freedom, but about fear. The message was that a gun is an insurance policy for your family, a rational, fear-based appeal designed to resonate with someone who worries and plans meticulously. For potential swing voters, they would push negative ads about the opposition, like a sponsored article on Politico titled 10 Inconvenient Truths About the Clinton Foundation, designed to look like journalism and suppress their motivation to vote. For confirmed supporters, the ads were triumphant and mobilizing, with images of their candidate and information on where to vote. This was a form of psychological warfare, conducted silently through our social media feeds. Whistleblower Christopher Wiley put it best: "We exploited Facebook to harvest millions of people's profiles and built models to exploit what we knew about them and target their inner demons. That was the basis the entire company was built on." 3. The Digital Citizen's Dilemma: How to Protect Yourself. The Cambridge Analytica scandal was more than just a political controversy. It was a fundamental violation of trust that sent shockwaves through our society. For the first time, millions of people were forced to confront a deeply unsettling truth: the free services we use every day aren't really free. This event crystallized the now famous axiom of the digital age: if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. Your attention, your behavior, and the most intimate details of your psychology are the commodities being bought and sold. The public fallout was immense. Trust in Facebook plummeted. A survey by the Poneman Institute found that trust in the company to protect user privacy dropped from 79% before the scandal to just 28% after. This led to the #DeleteFacebook movement, a $5 billion fine from the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, and it accelerated a global push for stronger data privacy laws, like Europe's GDPR and California's CCPA. But while regulations and fines are part of the solution, true power doesn't come from waiting for governments or corporations to protect you. It comes from knowledge and action. The Cambridge Analytica blueprint exposed a vulnerability in our digital lives, but it also gave us a map to defend ourselves. You are not helpless in this. Here are practical, empowering steps you can take right now to become a more vigilant digital citizen. First, conduct a third-party app audit. This is the exact vulnerability Kogan exploited. Go into the settings of your social media accounts and look for apps and websites. You will likely find a long list of games, quizzes, and services you haven't used in years that still have access to your data. Revoke access for anything you don't recognize or actively use. Second, master your privacy settings. Platforms like Facebook and Instagram have tools like Privacy Checkup that walk you through who can see your posts, what information is shared with advertisers, and how your data is used. Take 15 minutes to go through these settings. Limit ad personalization where you can, and make your default sharing settings more private. Third, become deeply skeptical of online quizzes. The next time you see a quiz asking for your personal information or requiring you to log in via a social media account, recognize it for what it often is: a data harvesting tool in disguise. Fourth, use privacy-enhancing tools. Consider using ad blockers, which can prevent many trackers from loading. Use browsers that prioritize privacy and block third-party cookies by default. And for messaging, switch to end-to-end encrypted apps like Signal, which ensures not even the company can see your conversations. Finally, and most importantly, practice critical consumption. Understand that your feed is not a neutral space. It is a battlefield for your attention, and the content you see, especially ads, is often designed to provoke a specific emotional response. Before you react, ask yourself, why am I seeing this? What emotion is it trying to make me feel? This mental firewall is your strongest defense. Conclusion. The Cambridge Analytica scandal was a blueprint for how personal data can be transformed into a tool for mass psychological manipulation. It proved that our digital lives, our likes, our shares, our connections, create a map of our minds that can be used to influence our decisions without our awareness. It was a profound loss of innocence for the digital age, but a blueprint can be deconstructed. The story of Cambridge Analytica is not just a cautionary tale, it's a lesson in the power of information. By understanding the mechanisms of manipulation, we reclaim our agency. Knowledge is your shield. Digital vigilance is not about paranoia, it's about empowerment. It's about consciously choosing how you engage with a world that is constantly trying to engage with you. What are your go-to privacy tips? Share them in the comments below to help the entire GenShift community. And if you want to keep arming yourself with the tools to deconstruct the modern mind, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.